Hello, Purple Cult. Welcome to another episode of the Purple Sessions. I am your hostess, Anastasia Elliot, independent rock artist with a great passion for mental health and wellness and healing. I created this show to talk to fascinating people from all walks of life about creativity, mental health, wellness, and how they inform each other. Today's interview, oh my gosh, these people are so cool. I'm interviewing celebrity mind-reading duo, the Sentimentalists. You may know them from America's Got Talent, or Canada's Got Talent, or the Penn and Teller show, or one of their many performances. I had the pleasure of seeing their show a couple of weeks ago, and to say I was mind blown is an understatement. If you know me well, you know that I have a real thing for magic, and I just love the way that it makes me have this childlike feeling of being surprised by something that you know is impossible. With her vintage style, Miss Steffi Kay transports you back to the golden age of magic, while Mysterion balances her out with his devilish, cool, dark persona. I recently actually got to go on a field trip with Mysterion to go and get a trumpet made out of a human femur bone. They are fascinating and lovely, and you'll even get to see them perform a little bit of magic on today's show that you don't want to miss. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like and comment and let us know what you think of the episodes. And if there's anybody that you would love to see me interview, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Hello! Today I'm here with the Sentimentalists. I'm so happy that you guys are here today.
Thank you for having us here, Anastasia.
Derek actually wrote my first question, and it is, what is my first question?
Well, you already told us. Your first question is, what is my first question? So it's
I wanted to start with you guys kind of telling about how you met and kind of individually kind of who you are and how you got started in this business, how you found magic.
So Steffi called an escort agency and I showed up. And then she got her money back. No, that's not true.
I didn't get my money back.
No, she didn't get her money back. No, I've been performing for a number of years in Toronto and in Canada, sometimes in the States, and I was hosting a pin-up talent contest, a pageant, and Steffi was one of the participants.
Really?
And yes, and she went up to do
the talent portion of the show, and everyone else did burlesque, and I kind of stood out because I drew a picture of a pin-up girl. And he was like, that's great, that was a beautiful piece. And I actually sold it that night too. Someone gave me like $50 for it.
Yeah, right from the stage.
Yeah. And anyway, he came up to me, he's like, that was great. Do you like pinup girls? Like, obviously. He goes, I have a collection of pinup autographs. And it wasn't weird, sometimes people, it's like, I have things.
I have pinup girls. Come over to my house. I'll show you my Tempest Storm.
No, but I could tell from meeting him that he was just cool. And he was like, yeah, I have a bunch of autographs and I want you, you'd love it. You should come by and see sometime. I have a museum. So anyway, we just became fast friends after that, and I would drive him to his shows. And
I don't drive. Terrified to drive.
Really?
Oh, I hate it. Yeah, I've tried recently.
Is there a reason, or do you just don't?
I mean, no, just the fact that I'm
Did
probably
anything
going to crash the car.
Did something happen to you?
Well, I was involved in collisions when I was a small child, but I don't think that has really anything to do with it. I think it's just that I know myself. Mm-hmm. I know that every time I get behind the wheel of the car, I leave the car extremely uncomfortable and frustrated and just upset, so there's no purpose for me to put myself in that position.
You don't really need to drive in Toronto either.
Really?
So.
Yeah, not really. We have a subway and it's connected to pretty much anywhere in the main core. Nice. I live right by the main station not the main station, the subway station is right by my house. I could get anywhere. Plus we have Uber, we have Steffi,
So were you in magic before you met him?
No.
Oh, wow.
Vintage clothing and art. I made art, was selling art, and then the clothing. I was in art school and then I dropped out. I'm an art school dropout from OCAD University, and I just realized I want to sell vintage clothes, and I wasn't learning what I wanted to learn in terms of selling vintage clothes with making art, so I just went for it, and then I started back into art, and that started doing really well, and then I stopped doing that, and we started hanging out all the time, so I would drive him to his shows, and I would be dressed in vintage clothing, and it's fancy enough to wear to a party, so I would just look like one of the guests at the show, and then because I'd seen his show so many times, he started to incorporate me into things. He would go, and yes, this person's thinking of a color. Miss, what color do you think it is? And I'd go, I think it's yellow. And it would be yellow. The person would go, oh my gosh, I can't believe she knew this, or whatever it was that I was reading. And people would come up to me after the show, and he watched them flock to me. And they'd go, how did you do all these things? You know, have you always had this gift? And he realized that there's something more with this. And he sat me down and he offered, do you want to do burlesque? Like, do you have an interest in being known in burlesque? Would you ever do that? And I said no. And he goes, what about magic? And I was like, you read my mind. That was it.
I saw money signs. You know, I was saying, and with Steffi, we would, like she said, we would go to the shows, and we started to work together. And at this point, I was in the middle of, well, you were with me at the beginning of this, negotiating a mini documentary for Bell Television in Canada. They wanted to do a thing on my my sideshow event, and I thought, we got to get Steffi in on this, because I knew that
we were going places.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be just a short thing. And one of the camera people said, they asked, what do you call yourselves? And we really didn't have a name. And the camera guy jokingly said, you should call yourselves the Sentimentalists. And we were like, yeah, that's
so
it.
Good.
That's it.
It has the classic feel, and it's like just kitschy enough, but so cool.
Yeah.
It goes both kitsch and sophisticated.
Exactly.
And it can really play, okay, it's vaudeville, or okay, it's the Magic Castle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it fits both areas. And I was working in burlesque. I was producing the biggest burlesque shows in Canada. We were flying in the legends like Tempest Storm in April, March, and I was working in tandem with people in New York and Vegas and LA, and we were putting on these massive shows. And so I was also working in the sideshow, working with some of the performers from Coney Island, and kind of combining those two worlds together with my own vision. So that name fit that, but it also allowed us to go into the corporate direction, which I had already been in. I was one of the only performers that could kind of cross from the weird and the underground into, you know, high-paying corporate gigs. People often wondered how it was that I could appear in the newspaper holding something morbid like a specimen in a jar, and then walk right into a fine dining establishment and do a show for a law firm. And it was just because I could. I did. It was me. It was what they were buying.
And people are interested in that. I'm not trying to say anything rude when I say this, but even squares are interested in weird, unusual things.
Yeah.
So,
it's like morbid curiosity.
Yeah. And I kept it to a minimum, but they were buying me. They weren't buying the magic. They weren't buying the baby. They weren't buying the two-headed thing. They were buying the idea of me and my ability to entertain and have a lot of fun with people, break people out of their routine. Which, you know, we met you not even a week ago at the House of Cards, and here we are sitting with you, and you got taken out of your routine at the House of Cards, got to see what we do, and in doing so, it created a temporary world where, you know, magic is possible. It's real. You know, it's
your
real.
business card is phenomenal too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. That's why I think I fell in love with magic so much, is because it's, you know, as a creator, it's kind of hard for me to feel like super, not impressed isn't the right word, but like completely like taken out of myself with something creative. But magic to me like makes me feel like a kid again. It's like that sense of wonderment, because I genuinely can't figure out how anyone does like any trick, and so that's just so cool for me. Yeah. And like, how does it feel to literally like blow people's minds for a living? Does that feed your ego?
Oh my gosh. You know, we go to work and we do what we do, and then people smile and hand us money. Like, what kind of job is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, here.
Here, take it.
Okay.
We'll walk outside on the way back from a venue like House of Cards, and we will stop someone on the street and keep doing it, or the man in the lobby, the concierge, or someone in the elevator, or the Uber driver, or the security at the airport. It really doesn't end when we step off the stage.
And everything we do on stage, we can do off stage. And that's what makes it, I think, a little bit extra magical, because we don't come off stage and then they go, do that again, or I didn't believe when you did that. I think that person was set up, you know?
Or there's a camera. Well, there's no camera
reliant on your
here.
Too.
Yeah, so then we go, okay, you don't believe it? Let's do it, you know? And they're usually taken aback. They're like, I was just kind of speaking out loud. I wasn't expecting anything to happen. And I think that's the thing about magic, and that's where we continue it. You never expect what's to come next. And if you're expecting what's to come next, it makes it a little bit less magical. So
never expect the Spanish Inquisition.
I don't know what that's from, but
know
it sounds
you don't.
hilarious.
I know you don't know what it's from. It's Monty Python.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you love Monty Python.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm out of this conversation, and I'll just go over
Have
here.
you never seen it?
No.
No, she's
Oh,
never seen it.
you must.
I've mentioned it
brilliant.
before. She's never seen
It's
it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
It holds up.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Have you seen Spam a lot?
Of course, I
Yeah,
saw it live
brilliant.
twice. I think.
Yes,
Yeah, I love them.
that's one of my favorite Broadway shows.
And that, speaking about that type of thing, like British comedy or Monty Python, British comedy in general, what Steffi and I do is so influenced by so many different areas. I was raised on Benny Hill, I was raised on Monty Python, Dave Allen, Saturday Night Live. I was up as a child watching Eddie Murphy doing Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, and then go to school on Monday morning and recant the skits, which was not cool. I mean, that was not allowed in the 80s. That was what? I remember the teacher saying, "What's your favorite show?" And all the kids were answering whatever it was, and then they come to me and I'm going, Benny Hill, scantily clad girls running around in grade 4. Hold on a minute here, what's up? So there's a lot of influences from this sort of this music hall, old vaudeville that I was exposed to that was on television. I mean, I wasn't around when old vaudeville was around, but there were elements of it there that is completely lost. There is no reference to it anymore in today's entertainment. And so we kind of take that, and with Steffi, of course, with the way she looks and the movies she enjoys and the different nuances that you would bring to the stage that would be different than somebody else would, because they're not emanating themselves in that genre and lack of a better word, culture of a vintage language and poise and appearance. These things are very important when it comes to magic, and it also takes the person out of the everyday and brings you into a world where you're not only being stimulated by what you're seeing as a magic act, but you're also being visually confused because you're watching it happen in a way that you're not used to. You're seeing two people wearing a certain type of outfit, and it makes you really not uncomfortable, but you don't know where to look.
And that's actually where we create storytelling with our show, because a lot of performers that are magicians, they'll have props, they'll have a sign, they'll have this, that. We come out and it's just us. So our storytelling begins as soon as we step on stage, and that's the same. That's how it should be for all performers. As soon as you walk out,
and the second you guys actually walked out, the second the curtain opened on you guys, I turned to Derek and I was like, this makes me feel like I wish I was in the old days, because look how everyone's dressed so nicely and look how cool they are. And I mean, you transport your audience to like another world.
Yeah, we don't have a giant box to put Steffi in to cut her in half, so people don't know how to automatically relate. And it is the clothing.
I mean, when it is just you two, it's like, what are they gonna do? They don't have all the props. It's
what is it? A paperback novel and a pack of cards.
Exactly.
And we do the same thing in front of a giant stadium. We were just in Vegas 2 weeks ago, and there was 5,000 people watching our show. What did we have? We had a piece of paper. Piece of paper. Somebody had their phone. I've had agents.
That adds probably to the realness of
Absolutely. We had an agent, we still have this one agent who, a wonderful guy, but he said to me, make it big, get a big giant this and a big giant that, and a screen and a this and a that. And I said, no,
Absolutely
I said,
not.
We can't do that, because the minute we start bringing in those elements, people are going to look at it and go, it's a trick.
Yeah, real mind reading, you don't need anything. Why would you need a prop to read someone's mind?
Yeah,
totally. I definitely relate to what you were saying about the vaudeville and how a lot of people aren't exposed to that anymore. At least for myself in music, I grew up in the opera, the symphony, and the ballet, and my grandfather was the chairman and part of a lot of that, and so that's where I grew up. And bringing in operatic influences and classical music into modern rock and pop is it's a dying breed of music.
how 70s of you, right? but it's
I mean, it's a dying breed of music now. Like it's dying out with its generation, and those people are also very resistant to innovation, and they want to keep things very we only play the classics. And,
that's right.
That's why it's not that's why you see a lot of symphonies and stuff doing these movie nights now, where they'll play a movie and they'll play the symphony, and that gets the younger crowd
That's
out.
right.
But I don't know. There's ways to innovate with the old and use it as inspiration in different new ways.
The saddest thing to see is somebody who can't accept that things change.
Mm-hmm.
There's one magician who I've known for a long, long time. And it's funny because I always laughed and went, the guy has not changed his act since the 60s. Since the 60s. Same pattern, same act, same props, same fucking outfit the guy's wearing, okay? And it's funny because it got to the point where I looked at him and I had pity. Mm. Then I looked on TikTok and saw that someone had filmed him, and it was so old that it became so new and fresh, and he had 80 million views.
Oh my goodness.
Insanity.
And I thought, interesting.
But it's a novelty.
It's a novelty.
Mm-hmm. How do you innovate your act with something like mentalism has obviously been around for a long time. How do you keep innovating for things like that? Is mind reading about patterns? Is it tricks? Is it an energy that you pick up on people? When did you know you had a gift for it?
I think to be innovative in the sense of content, be aware of what's current. Because if we're going to go in and do an event and there's young people there and we ask them to think of a band and they come up with some name that I'm not aware of, I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Whereas as if I went into the House of Cards and said, think of the name of a celebrity, someone might write down Audrey Hepburn. A kid isn't going to know who Audrey Hepburn is. So we have to be very on the ball when it comes to what audience we're performing for, the content that they may or may not choose, the things that they're into.
At least you have to consume a lot more content.
You have to consume
you
content.
Really aware of,
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah.
At least be aware.
I buy those celebrity magazines at Savers at thrift stores, and they're a year old or maybe 6. They're not current. But at least I'm getting names that are more recent, and so that's homework for me. Is I just look through. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Okay, oh neat. And this is what people were wearing 1 year ago, I guess.
Yeah. Because the other thing too is I'm not consumed by celebrity culture. I'm too busy working to look and see what's
that's I was thinking that's your homework.
Yeah.
Did you teach her the tricks of mentalism?
To a degree,
yeah. Were you just a natural?
She was a natural, but there was a bit of procedural process, I guess is the only way to really put it without saying how we do it.
Yeah, of course.
But what Steffi and I do is
unique.
It stopped at a certain point because there was only a point where I could teach her so much where we completely took all that and kind of put it on a shelf and then created our own way of doing it. And I think that because we have our own way of doing it and no one else in the world is doing it even remotely the same. They might look like they're doing it the same way, but that's why I think we have a leg up on so many different acts and so many other different types of performers, because even magicians watching don't know how we're doing it.
I like to think it's magic for magicians.
Yeah.
And just
I was going to say, is it a goal of yours to blow other magicians' minds?
Oh, we did Penn and Teller. We filmed Penn and Teller.
You're the only mentalist actor ever.
No, we're not the only mentalist act.
Duo.
She's the first mentalist woman, and we're the first mentalist duo to do it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What is it like being a woman in magic? It's not as common, right?
No,
I mean, definitely all the magic shows we've seen, and when I go to House of Cards, it's predominantly men. What is that like? Are they resistant? Is the magic world resistant to female magicians, or are they
It's a numbers game. They're accepting. From my experience, they're accepting. Yeah. But it is just numbers, and the more men are just interested in becoming magicians and following through with it, because there's always an interest and there's always hobbyists. But it's the people that put themselves over the extra mile to actually be full-time performers, or even hobbyists. There's just significantly less women doing it. I think there is a statistic for it, and I could be totally wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it's it's 1 in 10 are women.
Wow.
Magicians. Mentalists, which is like a niche, like a branch off of magic. There's illusionists, there's mentalists. In mentalism, I believe, so 1 in 10 are women in magic, and then within those numbers, 1 in 10 are women in mentalism.
Wow.
So it's 1 in 100.
Very small.
1 in 100.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
a
So
lot
if you were to look at why women in magic were predominantly not part of the industry,
it's wardrobe.
it's wardrobe.
Really?
Magicians, and they would wear suits, and you have pockets and places to hide
The
things.
tricks are built around the suit.
And women always, always new dresses. You don't want to be seen wearing the same thing multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't want to wear something that's on your cover every time you go out. Like, okay, it's beautiful, but you just wouldn't. So, what, you're sewing pockets into things all the time, and thankfully we don't. I don't need anything. So
A lot of the things that you might find a current performer doing, fortunately, are not things that would have been done back in the 30s. For example, a cigarette vanish is antiquated. No one's smoking in the venue where I can take someone's cigarette and vanish it into a device that flies up my sleeve. So I don't think women are going to find that it's going to be difficult to pick up current content and available effects that are on market, because there is a market for magic that people can turn to, and then women are going to find it difficult to incorporate it into their act.
Now, the other thing too, and we were just talking about something like this at the House of Cards, where people get their ideas from now and where they're inspired is from YouTube, from TikTok, and so everyone's seeing the same things and the same way that the methods are done, so they're just repeating what they're seeing. So the creativity isn't there anymore, because before you would read a book, and from that book you could delegate, okay, like you're practicing it on your own in front of the mirror, so your technique, even though you're reading it from a book, would be different from someone else reading it from a book and practicing the same way.
Yeah.
So, but now everyone just copies one another, and it's about the camera angles. And so what you're seeing is you're only seeing what's in the screen. You're not seeing everything else that's going on around it. And that's where we're losing a lot of those in-person performances that are really astounding, because people are just filming stuff and then
editing it to fit their narrative.
Yeah, and then you come and you do a show and you're not aware of your surroundings.
Oh my god, some people get eaten alive.
I was gonna ask you guys what it's like for you watching other magicians, if it's like, do you, like, because when I watch other musicians, like, you can't help when that's your profession to be like, rating or like, oh, they did this, or like, they could have done this. Is it something that's like fun for you? Do you get your minds blown often?
It's funny, because when we see other performers, when we're doing live shows, and let's say we're doing a variety night or something, or we're performing at the Magic Castle or the House of Cards or at Keller's in Erie, Pennsylvania, they really curate who they're bringing in. So there's no one that we go, wow, that was painful to watch. That's not something I've really experienced.
That's when I book talent. You get that.
Occasionally. No, but you like to give people chances.
I always give people chances. I have a very open door policy, and I'm gonna recant on that. I have a policy that allows up and coming performers a stage. That doesn't mean if you stink, I'm going to put you on my stage.
Yes.
That's what I mean. However, there are certain acts out there that are so horribly bad that I will happily book them just for the novelty of what the hell was that.
Sounds like America's Got Talent to me.
Yeah, sounds like America's Got Talent. So I've done that in the past, but I don't do that really much anymore, because I want to make sure that the standard is a certain level. I think, with watching other acts,
you're not watching to see if they're... A lot of the times what people are going to do.
Yeah, or how they're going to do it.
Or how they're going to do it. So it's about the storytelling element.
Right.
And just that kind of that's where you find the enjoyment, is just watching them and how they want to display their craft. There's only so much that you can do.
There was this great act that I just saw on YouTube, and it was on Britain's Got Talent. It was an invisible magician. So it was a voice. I am here, but you can't see me. Trust me.
I'm right in front of you.
I'm in front of you, and then
One
the
of the
buzzers
buzzers
go off. and the judge jumps because, and then come and sit on this chair, and then the judge will come up and sit, and then a little trolley rolls over.
Pick up the balloon from the trolley,
and then it pops by itself. And I know what's going on.
Yeah,
I know
creative,
that
though.
It is so creative. I mean, it's a radio controlled trolley. We're not idiots, but the point is that I'm watching it and my jaw's dropping because I'm going, "This is amazing! It's a ghost!" And then take the chalk and put it on the chalkboard, and then it sticks to the chalkboard. Well, obviously we know that there's a magnet or something, and then it starts writing. We can look at it and deduct how the trick was being done.
But it was entertaining.
Oh my God, I didn't even care about how it was being done. I loved the idea of a phantom magician. And this is so fresh and original. So original that someone came up with that idea and then actually executed it to such a degree that it kept my attention. I could only imagine how a layperson would watch that and go, "Oh, there's a ghost," or something satanic, or I'll do the spooky show, or what's his name?
Nick Wallace.
Nick Wallace. We've worked with him many times. Did a wonderful bit with a doll.
Yeah, so one of the first magic shows I went to go see as a magician, he took me to this fellow Nick Wallace's show, and it was in this old auditorium in an old school, like an old university. And it was all dark wood inside. It was beautiful, and like the seats kind of curved up a bit, and we were looking down at him. What is that style?
Like a medical room,
Yeah.
We're watching the autopsy thing going on.
And so he had an old record player on the stage that he used as one of the he used at some point, and a creepy chair and a doll and this and that. And
smoke.
And smoke.
It was dark. It was great.
And there was one point where he's like, "Okay, you may feel an apparition. We're going to turn off the lights and just think and put yourself into this state." So the lights were off, and you felt it sometimes. Like you felt things, and you're holding hands with the people next to you because that was what was requested. I remember I held James Allen's hand, and we're sitting there, and
went all night.
I just hold your hand, and I felt the apparition, and it was just so magical. And to this day I've never experienced anything like that, like something where the whole audience is experiencing something so sensory, like the deprivation and then the feeling of touch. And
if you knew how it was done,
you would laugh.
You would go, "Come on."
It's so silly.
And yet it's so
effective. And it's just beautiful. But that kind of presentation, it was the whole idea of it. It was really magical.
Between the Civil War and World War II, the average person in America lost 2 relatives to a war.
Oh!
Good?
Oh!
Right?
She approves of my good.
There we go. So the average person lost 2 relatives to a war between the Civil War and World War II. The spiritualism movement was rampant then because there were so many people that wanted to connect with lost relatives. So the idea of duping the public using magic methods, tools that we use to entertain, to fool the public into believing that you're communicating with the dead. Okay, so let's take the morals and throw them aside. Let's just look at what they're doing.
We already do that.
Yeah, exactly. They're using a technique, okay? Be it a table that has a little ring or a little lip on it that you can connect and raise the table, to chalkboards that you can somehow put a secret slate onto one and a message appears.
Or someone hiding behind a curtain.
You'll do seances too, right?
We will do a show seance.
Yes, the show seance.
The thing is that it's done for entertainment. But that idea, that style, that connection is lost. People have lost the intimacy of a parlor, sitting down, no phone on. Let's all sit in a room and speak. Let's have a conversation without a fucking phone. We have to bring people into that headspace again. And we do it through mentalism. Now, with somebody like Nick Wallace, the whole act revolves around connection. And when you take people and put them into an uncomfortable situation, not the ghosts, the lack of technology. When you take away someone's technology, they feel trapped, they feel lost. all of a sudden I can't communicate with the world? What if there's a text I need to get back to? Is my kid okay? All these things that 25 years ago we didn't have to rely on. Do you know how great that is as a tool to exploit as a mentalist? Do you know how awesome a tool that is to exploit? If you have the audience, phones off, in your pocket, don't go near them. Now we're going to talk to ghosts. All of the people forgot what chalkboards are. What do you mean a message appeared on a chalkboard? When was the last time you used a chalkboard?
It's been a while.
Right? So he's able to take you back into this impossible world.
With the radio, like the old phonograph, you know?
That is, for me, that is what I like to see when I'm watching a show.
Those old dolls, it's not like, it's like an old porcelain doll.
It's like, what was his name? Jeremy?
Julian.
Julius upstairs.
Yes.
Creepy. I love it. Right? A creepy, fun doll.
Yeah.
But that is what I look for. It's not about what trick it is, it's how it's presented. How many acts at the Magic Castle? Dale.
Oh, Dale Salwag. Amazing.
So good.
So incredible. Good. Interesting. So people remodel their houses because they're dated. But were they not functional? Was the fridge not working? Was the stove not working? No, it worked. I just wanted something more modern. So there's this whole idea of replacing things that don't really need to be replaced. There are things that need to be replaced, like the light in the fridge might not work anymore, or maybe it needs new coolant things. I don't know anything about fridges, but you see where I'm going with this.
Sure.
And you have these. He mentioned Dale Salwag, this entertainer, and he's also a teacher. He teaches at the Chavez School of Magic. And there's one location in Indiana, and then there's also one in Los Angeles. And I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And but they teach you magic there, and he's a true gentleman, and he has that, like, he shakes your hand, he remembers your name, and he's just so gracious and kind and reserved, but also so witty and funny. And but like these people that have this like old world era to them, and I'm not talking about all the political stuff. It's just, it's something that we've lost, I think, like the politeness.
Consistency.
It's like consistency. You go and you shake hands with someone, and there should be like a certain level.
Even
and
men opening the door, and just lovely things like that. It's very gone.
And it's the same thing with clothes as well.
Yes,
so
like people wearing their pajamas to the airport.
Oh my god.
When people used to, that was an occasion to go fly. Like people used to
Wear a
dress
suit.
up to fly,
Yeah.
and now people are in their
They dress
pajamas.
down.
Yeah.
But with vintage dresses, do you ever notice that it's difficult to lift your arms sometimes, or it's tight under? That the sleeves are cut higher. So that, one of my friends said this to me. She goes, her grandmother is like a 50s. She's alive still, but she was a socialite in the 50s, and she goes, what are you wearing this such a beautiful dress for that you need to lift your arms up for?
My grandma always used to say things like that when we would go to try on things, and I'd be like, I can't do this, and she's like, when are you doing that? And I'm like, well, you're right, I mean, I'm not.
That's not what those dresses were for. And so it's that same thing with that consistency. Like, there's a time and place for things, and that dress, maybe that wasn't the time and place to like have an awesome fun dance. Maybe it would be more of a cotillion thing, and your arms aren't coming above shoulder height. And so there's that whole trade-off too, right? The men open the door, but the women look really beautiful, and they're not, they're there as like the prize, right? So it is a trade-off for things. But
why can't they coexist?
They can.
Exactly.
They can.
Yes.
People get so...
I
They get their
open
knickers
doors-
in a bind.
I open doors for men too,
Yeah,
like,
of course.
and they're just like, and it reminds them, and it reminds
Courtesy.
other women
Yeah.
too. Like it's polite, and it's nice. It's a nice. There can be a medium.
Here's the thing. If you're watching an act, in my opinion, unless you're watching something that you're going to go see Bill Burr, it's going to be crass, which I'm all about.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go sit down and watch a real magic act or a mentalism act, it better have class. Even if it's presented with a dark element or a sideshow element or something that isn't necessarily considered classy, you can still do it with class. Benny Hill as lewd as he was on television, was extremely classy.
Mm-hmm.
You could watch him and go, I see where he's going with
You
this.
can have both.
You can have both.
I mean, I have, plenty of nudity in my work, but it is all tasteful and it is
Yes.
all classy. It's not like OnlyFans, which if that's your thing, like,
Difference between
have
being
it,
a
but-
prude and
yeah,
being classy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they can like in pinup style and burlesque, those are, I think, very classy
Absolutely.
things. Like,
It can all coexist.
yeah. they
Yeah,
can.
and I worked in burlesque for decades, and I've
I-
seen outfits that are worth 50 grand come out on stage, literally a button and a bow,
Mhm.
and it's, $50,000 outfit with plumage that's made out of
The rarest of
rare,
rare.
right? And it's radiant, and people would look at it and go, "You're just a stripper." No, you are
Yeah.
not.
I watched. I had got tickets to the Dita Von Teese,
Yeah.
the special she did over COVID, and we watched it upstairs, and it was just the costuming. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's beautiful and brilliant. Have you always been inspired by vintage clothes? Like, how did you kind of get into that, and how did you choose your era of specialty?
I've always been drawn to the 30s. Before I even knew that different decades, what they were and how to differentiate them, I've just always been into the 30s, mainly pre-war. I don't really wear too many things that are wartime just because it feels a little, like, I feel like I'm glorifying a time that was like a struggle and people were dying. It's always been a struggle, and there's always different connotations with different decades. Like the 20s is terrible because like at the end of it because of the depression, and the 30s. I mean, there was the depression going on, but there's just there's compromises that you make for each decade, and like no time is a perfect time.
No.
Was there a movie star growing up that you just loved, or was your mom, like, were you around it, or was it just something, is it a past life for you?
I've always had a special connection with my grandmother, and both my grandmothers, the one I met and the one I didn't meet, but specifically with the one that I didn't meet, we have a lot of things in common. And I look quite a bit like her, and I don't really look like anyone else in our family, which is kind of interesting, but we also draw the exact same. So much so
cool.
I couldn't differentiate her work from my work at one point.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Same favorite movie. When I was growing up, I was maybe 10 years old, and I watched The King and I loved it.
That's awesome.
Right, with Yul Brynner, it was like
Yes,
amazing.
it's a great movie.
And my mom, she goes like, talking about movies, maybe we were out for dinner with family or something. Oh, like, what's your favorite movie? Like family asking silly questions to children. I go, The King and I. And my mother, how do you know this? And it turns out that was her mother's favorite movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe you've always had a gift
Yeah.
for being weirdly mentally connected.
Yeah.
I like this story your mom told me, that you guys were at an antique shop once, and little Steffi was 5 or whatever age you were, and she just looked at her mom with a pair of vintage gloves and went, "I must have these gloves."
That's how I still speak like that. I must have these gloves. Mother,
Mom,
I must have these
Mother,
gloves.
I
That's
must
so
have these gloves. So she bought her the vintage gloves
I
to
love
just,
that.
It's also really cool. So my mother, she has 2 siblings, and my uncle needed a speech therapist, and they had this woman come in, and she taught him some tricks and tips. And before she was a speech therapist, vocal coach, I don't know exactly what it was, but she, the teacher, she used to teach the transatlantic accent, because that was a thing that they used to teach.
I love learning about that. It's so cool.
They taught that in American schools.
So cool.
But it was very brief. And then once they were done teaching that, then what became of them? And what became of them was they became vocal coaches, speech, to help with speech impediments, things like that. And so this woman, looking for work, came and helped my uncle, but in doing so, his little sisters were around, and they listened in on the lessons that he was taking, and they adopted some of the manner that they speak. And so it's funny, when my father met my mother, he said, wow, like, you have an accent. And she goes, no, that's just people from this area, like, you're not from this province, it's just people here. And he goes, no, you don't sound like anybody else that's around here. And it's probably because of the diction coach that they had. So I love that, because it's kind of that old-timey, it's a little bit old world, and it's kind of wonderful. I've met a few people that do it. They put on the accent, and I just think it's wonderful. I don't really do it too much, but
it sounds so cool.
It's fun.
Even just the tone that women spoke in back then, it was a higher, gentler voice. Like, you didn't have these like deep voices like mine.
No, they did.
They
Lauren
raised
Bacall.
it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like,
who else?
Here, and they were,
It's like that soft demeanor of, yes, I'm a woman and I'm approachable.
Yes. I just love finding out about people's like upbringings and especially what influenced them in art and style. Like when I was growing up, my favorite movie was Pollyanna, and I loved the part where she fell off the roof and broke her arm, and I used to rewind that part, and my mom the movie ran away or got lost because she was like concerned about that. And the very first opera that I became like obsessed with was one that they put on in honor of my grandfather's death, Don Carlo, was the Devil opera, and that was the first time I was like, this is so cool. So I like always had kind of an affinity for like the darker side of art, and like,
I remember being a little boy and opening up the art book, and my mom had a book of famous paintings, and it was Goya's Saturn Devours His Children, and I was just staring at it, and that was the only one I would look at. And I
saw a mug with the face of him, and it says, "Don't talk to me until I've had my son."
That's amazing. I want that mug.
Yes, that's so
I mean,
good.
I was influenced by everything from Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in Dracula. I remember being a little boy, and I was down in the basement of the house, and I was watching TV. It was an old black and white TV, and it was Dracula, and it was just all on in the afternoon, and it was the scene, they open the coffin, and his body's lying there, and then all of a sudden his eyes open, and in the blood, and I remember, right? But I always had this visual of this moment where, this body comes to life, and how it made me feel. And I knew that there was power in that. There was power in that moment where I went, conscientiously I went, if I scare someone, I have power to scare someone. You have power over them. And so I used to do all sorts of stuff when I would prank people or try to scare them.
So you're the bad guy, you're the devil in the duo.
A bit, yeah. I'm the devil in the duo, yeah.
You know what?
But it's what it is.
It's a nice contrast, and it's funny. So on stage, he wears dark colors. We tried it for a time where we were matching in colors, and like super bright colors.
Made no sense for me, but
it
I
was
look
really
good.
fun. It was really fun, and we got a lot of like fun bookings that way. And we still dress up if someone says like, "Hey, would you?" But typically, what we like to do is I love pastels, so I love your hair too. Great color. So love pastels. So I'll wear something like pale pink, white, whatever. White's easy because you can just match accessories with it. It's like, okay, I'll run accessories today. But then he wears all black, and so it's a really nice, really nice contrast. And also there's that. With the pastels, there's that ethereal nature to it, and people kind of go like, they always see...
You have the ethereal nature, but you're also not completely angel. You have the edge. Like, there's that sexiness to you that's, like, not totally pure, which is awesome.
Look twice, don't blink or you'll miss it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I love how that plays together. It's so cool. What's been y'all's experience like being on all of the shows like Penn and Teller and America's Got Talent and now Canada's Got Talent? Like, do you enjoy it? Is it kind of like a means to an end for you, or is it something that's really, really fun? And do you get stage fright to go on TV? Like, what's the experience like?
I wouldn't say it's not. We can get nervous, but I don't think it's something that's nerve-wracking. It's more excitement.
You can change nervous to excitement.
Yes, I do that all the time. That's a great trick to learn for performers. Like, feelings are very close to each other.
I feel that it's an opportunity to show literally the world what we do. And so we kind of deserve that opportunity for the amount we've worked and what we've done. I think that, we're on Canada's Got Talent in 4 days. They're airing a second appearance by us. And I'm excited because that means that millions of people are going to watch us. And those opportunities don't come to everybody, so I'm very thankful for when they come up.
And then once it's out there, it's also there for consumption in the future too, so it just never stops. It feeds into itself.
And it fuels this celebrity culture mentality that people have, where they say, hey, these guys were on XYZ, they're worth this amount, or, we need to get them because they were on this, and then everyone's familiar, or you're safe because you were on this, or any number of other reasons. We were at an event the other day at the museum, and we had some people saying, we saw you on this show, and fantastic, or even something as simple as walking through security at the airport. People were at the airport. The one guy was like, I saw you guys at the Rio in Vegas, and somebody else, I saw you on America's Got Talent. Meanwhile, I'm bringing in guns. No, I'm just kidding. but the point is that it people can relate. They automatically know who you are. It gives you the opportunity to have the world as your audience. Yeah, absolutely.
It familiarizes you immediately. So as soon as, if you have someone announcing your show and you go, oh yes, we have the Sentimentalists tonight. They were on Penn and Teller's Fool Us. They were on America's Got Talent. This, that, all of our.
They must be good.
They must be good. That's what it boils down to. Is that
it sets the stage without also giving expectations, because, even though there are expectations, it's good. It's not really painting the picture much beyond that, apart from a familiarity. And I think that's also what works really nicely with us, is we have this vintage look, and it's like, oh, that's what my grandmother used to wear. That's I remember photos of great grandma looking like that.
Or like it's your way in.
Yeah, and it warms people up right away, and they go, oh, like I've seen this before, but they don't know where they've seen it before. Whether or not they've seen our act, it's that it's something recognizable. Even your hair stripe.
Absolutely.
That's,
it's a trademark.
Comic book people, people who like old movies.
That's what people say about my hair too. They're like, how many colors do you do? And I'm like, I have purple. Like 10 years you can look back. It's always been purple. It doesn't change. It's
branded.
who I am.
It's branded. They took my hair stripe away for AGT, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
You could see in my eyes, it didn't work. It was a guy named Sid.
Oh, they didn't air this, so they were asking us questions, and they cut it down to. We'll have the whole thing.
All right.
It's healthy. It is.
And so they ask us questions, and they only air some of them because Simon was asking Mysterion questions, and he goes, what makes you Mysterion? Why is it Mysterion? And so he started to explain about like how he came to be Mysterion, but that wasn't the question. Even though that was the question, it wasn't his question. His question was, what magic do you bring to the table? Because I was the one doing most of the magic on the spots, and so anyway, then he goes, why are you Mysterion? You could just be some guy named Sid. So now we call him Sid sometimes. It's hilarious.
On a bad day, you get to be Sid.
Yeah.
I don't
want to be Sid today. I don't want to be Sid.
There's a reason why I started peppering in the occasional spot where I read your mind.
Oh, you've always done that, but it's just sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just give it all to me.
I give it all to Steffi, but in a traditional 2-person act, one does, one doesn't. And one of the reasons is that on AGT, but the other one was that we'd done a show for an agent who had only saw me, a client that had only seen me perform. And then we had Steffi and I go in and do a show. And the client was happy with the show, but called the agency and said, listen, the show was great, but Mysterion didn't do anything. And that to me is a compliment, because that means I did my job perfectly, because you didn't see anything. That's what it's supposed to be. But then I realized, they expect something from me. Something. Whether it be one or two little things where, like at House of Cards, I'll say somebody, pick a number, or the number's right, or the cards, or something. Something
me
in
with
there.
The candy canes.
Yes.
They had me draw a picture, and I tried to think of the most random thing I possibly could, and I drew this candy cane. And then she drew the exact same candy cane. But before you had her reveal that, you told me that, I picked something that had something to do with your name, and it wasn't Mysterion, it was Chris. And I was like, oh shit, they're really going to get this. And I was like, how?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. If I pepper and then I can also read your mind, I'm just choosing not to. One of the other things that I used to play around with the idea that I don't want to, because I've seen too many things in people's heads that have made me go kind of crazy, There's that sort of backstory. But the truth is that the show is a 2-person duo act, and it should be Steffi saying the reveal. But with AGT, yeah, they took away my stripes, so therefore that's immediately gone. They take away my right to wear what I want. They made me wear this boxy suit, so I did look like a normal, average, everyday guy. I wasn't allowed to be me, which is what makes the act work. But now, thankfully, we're past that.
Screw that.
Yeah.
No, Sid.
You know what I think it also was, though? The season that we were on, there was another act that was with us, and they're friends of ours. And the girl looks kind of like, she totally looks like a pinup girl. And the guy, he's
Greaser
like,
kind of.
yeah, and tattoos. And so it was like,
Let's
we were very
differentiate.
similar. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
as
like,
much as we can.
And they really played them up to be like funky and cool and like vintagey. And like I got to wear my vintage stuff, but they really generic to you.
Yeah, they made me boring.
I don't know how to square.
Yeah.
I have Siamese babies.
Here, pass me the pad. I want to try something really quick.
Okay.
So,
Cool. Do you want me to put this on? Not yet.
in a moment.
Okay.
You can do this too. You can read minds.
Yeah. See, I would pick something else. He always picks something different than what I would pick.
There you
And
go.
then I wonder, what am I doing? Why do I do my job if I can't do my job?
Tell me the name of someone who's related to you that there's no way I would know the name of the person. Like, it can't be your
Not your
grandpa
grandfather,
because
yeah.
you mentioned his name, or maybe a cousin. Somebody, say their name out loud.
All right, Constantine.
Now, what do you call Constantine?
Papa.
Listen,
See, I wasn't gonna go there with it.
if I have the name Constantine written on this piece of paper, that's going to be trippy, isn't it? And I don't know who you are. I mean, I know you, but I don't know anything about you. That is the exact name that I had written before I even asked you the question.
What?
Name 2 phobias you have. 2 phobias out loud.
You won't do the one that's obvious
Tell
that
me
you probably guessed.
Tell me the obvious one.
Flying.
Okay. Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, flying. You want me to tell you both of them?
Yeah.
Flying and losing my voice and not being able to sing anymore.
Is that a phobia or is that just a fear?
Okay.
That's more of a rational
Alright.
idea.
I really hate spiders.
Okay. So, what you're gonna do is you're gonna look at me. You're gonna take your finger and you're gonna touch one of my hands. And whenever you like, I want you to say stop.
Stop.
Right here.
You're gonna make your elbow. You're gonna make your arm longer.
Yeah. You see? You're always attracted to the things that you fear most. Steffi's gonna put on her blindfold.
Sure.
I love y'all so
And I
much.
want you to take that
This is
pad.
so cool.
And I want you to do this again for the TV. For the viewers at home.
Oh, a drawing. A drawing.
A drawing
Okay.
of
Right.
anything.
Okay.
Anything.
Don't eat that last cookie while I'm blindfolded.
know.
He's known for
I
eating
know.
things while I'm blindfolded, and I'm just like, I want to eat too, but I'm working.
It's true.
My favorite is when there's like cheese plates at the venue.
Oh, they're gone.
Oh
2
my
seconds,
gosh!
I'll devour
And
them.
he's just gone. It's just silent, and I'm like, this is not normal. He's usually talking.
Oh, she'll be blindfolded and I'll walk off and
Yeah.
I'll start eating off a plate just to
Yeah.
be spiteful.
To be spiteful. Oh, so you do it out of spite.
Yeah, because you can't see.
Why is that out of spite?
Is it
What
spite?
What did I do
It's
to
not
you?
spite, I guess
What
the
did I
word
do
is
to you?
to
I'm doing my job, and
be,
you're
to
like,
be prankful, maybe is the word. Okay, pass it to me, but without it.
keep it tilted away from me. I do not want to see. You know, sometimes people, they think that I can see through this, or that like they'll go like, oh, you saw, or you
Concentrate.
looked.
You know, wait.
But the
No. I want you to think of what you drew.
Okay.
Yeah.
perhaps okay. And this and so they'll go like, yeah, I don't believe that you didn't see this. But the thing is, if I saw it, I don't want to do it. Like I tell people sometimes, I'm like, I saw it, I don't want to do it. To do something else because like you tilted it in a weird way. Is it hidden?
Yeah, it's hidden.
Okay.
It's there, hidden.
Yeah, I picked
That's
the
it.
thing I almost drew last time.
Oh, okay.
A box. a panel, like a buttons, not a remote, doesn't need a remote. Could have a remote, that would be cool. Use a microwave from across the room.
It's the microwave!
Would that be great? Just like, and then like popcorn is just
That's
going.
exactly what it is. It's
Yep.
a really good drawing of a microwave.
Yep.
Where's the marker? I'm gonna put a baby in the microwave.
Yeah, well, I don't know why last time it was a candy cane and a microwave that
No.
came to my head, and I was like, okay, well, this time I'm gonna do the microwave then.
I love this. This was great.
How? I mean, obviously you can't tell me how, but like,
I just say what I'm picking up.
it's
Yeah. But it's tact. Oh my gosh.
Baby in a microwave.
Have you ever met a medium or like been like? Do you believe in the ability to?
You know what? I've never met someone that I've been like, I'm so convinced.
I have a
However,
girl for you.
oh, I'm interested.
Listen.
So what I know is that people can only tell you what you already know about yourself, and they can make,
a microwave.
but they can make deductions based off of that. So
Did I give you hints about the microwave?
no.
No. You know, when it comes to a psychic, a medium, someone like that, I've had my own personal experiences where I've seen a ghost. And not only did I see the same ghost as other people in this house, but generational and unrelated people. Completely different families that didn't have any connection with me, would have no idea about what we'd seen. I kept track of the house, and I found out that other people who lived in the same house had seen the same thing. I'd gone back to the house recently and was invited in by the current owner. I didn't even mention the ghost. And when I left, I swear to my life, I mentioned something at the end of the conversation. We were hanging out for about half an hour.
Outside of the house.
Outside of the house now. We were inside, then we came out. And as I said goodbye, I felt someone grab me by the arm. I've had these personal experiences. I know them to be 100% fact. They are not a made-up thing. I could deduct how I could imagine perhaps I saw something, or I made it up. But when you start to go down this path of other people and the same experiences, and it becomes more and more less imagined and more concrete. Can somebody say, I'm going to connect with your grandpa, and his name is so-and-so, and maybe. My father, who is like a straight shooter, my father doesn't play games. He's not a believer in the paranormal. He's not scared of anything. And I was at his house about 20 years ago, and I was speaking to him, and in the living room, there was a seat like this that no one was sitting in, that had its back to the hallway that kind of passed from one area to the other. And as I'm speaking to him this way, we can kind of both, I guess from his peripheral, he could see the chair. And I saw a little boy walk, I'm getting chills, walk from the bathroom area into the room, but behind the chair still. He didn't come in the room, he was passing the room, and then duck behind the chair. And my dad was talking to me, and we both went like that at the same time and looked. And I said, "Did you just see that?" And he went, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, on the same time, what did you see?" 1, 2, 3. A little boy. And I'd never seen my dad scared, ever in my life. Never. And he was freaked out. And he was like, I never believed it till right then. That was it. And that's the only time he's ever seen anything. He said, "You've seen it multiple times, and other people have claimed to have seen things." Said nothing else has ever happened in that apartment. And the only thing was that night, and only that night, the cat was scared and ran into the room and slept with Anne. But the cat never does that. So,
Yeah.
I've seen UFOs.
She saw
I'll take
UFO.
what I can take.
Yeah, she saw UFO.
I think they were communicating with me too. Like that's so weird. I've never
They
actually
really
said
have
it like that.
special abilities. Maybe they can get into you.
I know it sounds so hokey, but it's not.
It was like I kept seeing it. I was home alone for my first time ever, and I was like, I'm gonna stay up late and eat junk food and watch scary movies and
Joe
stuff.
Pesci tried to break in, and he had to make things to smack them.
And I felt so tired, and I went to bed so early at like 8 o'clock at night. And I woke up 2 hours later, and I went over to my window, and we lived on the water, and I look above on the water, and I see something in the sky, and it was like a pyramid, and it had red and white lights along one of the bottom edges, and I just was like staring at it, and I had this overwhelming feeling of everything's fine. This is how it's supposed to be. How is it supposed to be? This is how it's supposed to be. Just go back to bed. Everything's fine. This is how it's supposed to be. Just kept going in my head. Yeah. And so I'm like, no, I want to like call someone. Like I'm scared. What is this? And I went back to bed. I woke up exactly 1 hour later, and I went back to the window to see if like, oh, was I dreaming? Like what the heck was that? And also, I want to stay up. I want to do stuff. Go back to bed. This is fine. This is how it's supposed to be. I don't talk to myself like that. Like I have an internal monologue, but like I don't do that. And I see it again, and it's still there in the same spot, just hanging out. And I go back to bed. I wake up exactly 1 hour later, and now it's gone. And then I called, like I messaged my friend that night, and I was like, oh my gosh, and it was like 1 a.m. And so it was something like that. Anyway, it was, I don't know what I saw, but there's sightings of these pyramid things in our area, in Georgian Bay, in the sky in that area. And I know someone else who saw something similar to that, and they told me first before I told them. I was like, do you ever see anything? And they're like, yeah, I see this like pyramid thing in the sky. I'm like, that's cool, so me too.
Yeah, far out, huh?
Weird.
I love the unknowable.
Yeah, I used to own a voodoo cross. It was an altar, and it was essentially, I'm not going to get into what it was made out of, but it was made out of extremely, extremely dark items. The wood came from somewhere that was not cool, and then on top...
You didn't know when you got it.
No.
You thought it was just a voodoo altar, but like, what is just a voodoo altar?
Right. And so the head of a murdered voodoo practitioner, a murdered man, is on the top of this altar. I didn't know this, so I buy this altar and I have it in my living room.
And you're supposed to give it like offerings, and it loves it. And
I did. I give it rum and cigarettes and things.
Orange
peels and stuff. You're supposed to give it money.
Does it like orange peels?
Yeah, for some reason. I don't know why. Oranges and fruit and weird things. Anyway, this voodoo altar is in my house, and things just start getting really weird. And eventually I get rid of it. I sell it for what I paid for it. I don't want any connection to it. And the night it sold, the day it sold, that night, I'm lying in my bed facing the window, my back to the door into the room where the cross was, and my girlfriend is in the bed next to me sitting up, and I open my eyes, and I think I kind of remember thinking, do we have a house guest? Because, we can have someone over at any given time. There's always people coming over. I kind of opened my eyes and went, who's here? And she goes, nobody's here. So no one's here? We don't have a house guest? And then now I'm coming back to consciousness, and I'm going, okay, she goes, go back to bed, you're dreaming. I said, okay, so I went back to bed. She didn't want me to know, because she told me when she was watching, she wouldn't have gotten any sleep. She had to be up in the morning.
And you would have been up
with all my devices and all my stuff, right? Communicating with the dead. And she was watching a shadow walking around the room looking for something. So whatever was there was looking for the altar. And the guy who took the altar lost his lease on his business the week he got the altar, and then had to move, and there was an incident with one of his past employees coming up and having a knife and throwing a court case. Like, it was just bad luck bears.
You got rid of that altar.
Yeah,
we collect a lot of weird things. What's your favorite thing that you have collected? Yeah.
My Atacama mummy. What is that? So Steffi and I were in LA, in New York. And I was on a TV show back in the day multiple times, and one of the gentlemen that were on the show as a main character, I was what would you call me?
An appraiser.
A reoccurring appraiser. You know those shows? You have the reoccurring appraiser. I would be there whenever something weird would come on.
So this fellow had some interesting things, and he said, I have something for sale. You might be interested in it. And it's an Atacama mummy, so it's like it's a small mummy, basically. And they've done DNA tests on them. I actually need some water. Okay. Sorry. We're both gonna ditch out.
I'll show you a picture of it so you can see it, so we can show the viewers what we're talking about.
Woo!
You can bring it over here.
Continuity.
Oh.
There it is.
Oh, it's tiny. Oh, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
So it's got a percentage of its DNA. I think, what is it, like 8% or something? 9%?
9%
Is unknown.
unknown DNA.
It's not human. Unknown.
It's not human.
So
Doesn't match any other sequence.
this fellow had one of these, and then we had to bring it over the border, and we're like, what do we declare this as? So we put it in a little box, and we wrote prop on the box, and they didn't even look at it. You know,
They didn't even question it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and that being said,
there's only a few of them in the world, and they even have conventions for these. And it's like alien conventions, and people come just so they can look at these things. And he just has one.
Wow.
He's like, yeah, I got one.
one of the funnest things I did was that conspiracy shop that was by my house. Did I ever tell you what I did with the Atacama mummy?
No.
So I went to Value Village, and then across the street from Savers. I went to Savers, which is right by my house, and across the street from the Savers was this little shop that sold books on conspiracy theories, UFOs, this sort of thing. It was a very small store. And they were having a talk. They had one of their meetings where they're all convinced that JFK is Bigfoot or whatever. And I went in, and they were talking about the Atacama mummy and all the aliens and all this, and I went, I have an Atacama mummy, and they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, they're looking at me like they're snubbing me because like they're like these elitists.
Yeah.
One guy with the hair, you know that guy that's on that TV show with the hair, George Tazazazuza or something. He's on Ancient Aliens. He's got the big hair. He's there. So I went home and I got it and I brought it back and I went to the one person who believed me. I went, come here. And I showed him, and then he went, no, he has one. And I went, none of you get to see it. I just brought it on.
That's
Wow,
great.
Yeah, I told you. That was like
Great.
3 weeks after it happened.
We planned to go to the convention and to go do like
Oh,
mind
yeah,
reading
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
be
yeah.
like, yeah, like we're, and just kind of like fool around with people, and then bring the Atacama mummy with us.
Yeah.
And then they'll go, okay, guys, get out of here, and then we'd be like, no, but see, we have one.
And then be like, bye. No.
That is
Yeah.
Glad you did that.
amazing.
No. It was like 3 weeks after. It was
Oh, man.
really weird.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
It was
What
like
a cool
alien. They were
thing to
talking about
have.
aliens and then like other stuff. And then like I was there. And then somehow it came up. Cirrus came up, which was one that was in the media at that time. And I went, oh, I have one of those. And the one guy was like, whatever, Chris, you don't have one. Or something along those lines. Like, oh, did you make it? And I'm like, no, it's a real one.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. So that's my favorite piece.
That's awesome. Well, I have 2 more things I'll ask you, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
Since your minds are so central to what you do, what do you do for your mental health? Like, what's in your mental health toolbox, and like, what is kind of your like self-care practices that keep you, going in entertainment and also keeping yourself balanced?
You go first. I'm interested.
Cocaine.
That's a great
Therapy is always helpful. Talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody on the Norm. Now I'm only talking to them once every maybe 2 or 3 weeks,
Progress.
just to keep things in a
Yes.
in a linear sense, and to keep things. Just being conscious of what you're doing in the now. Just being in the now. Not worrying too much about what the future holds, and trying not as much to worry about yesterday. Yesterday has no more weight on.
It's hard
on
as an
what's going on.
entertainer.
It's very hard. But it really doesn't. Anything that happened in the past is never going to change. It's in the past, and the only thing that can change is your perspective on what's upcoming. But you're always in the now. You're never, tomorrow never comes. You're always in the now. Right now is the now. Hold on, ready? Still now, right? So it's sort of this thing you got to get your head around and go, no, if you're in the now and you're
Now it's the
fed-
past, Mysterion.
No, that was the past. It's over now. So that being said, having someone to talk to, being aware of your emotions and writing things down and being conscientious of what you're writing down, and then comparing those things to what you're experiencing and going, you know what, it may not be as bad as I might imagine it to be.
Or it may be worse.
Might be worse.
No, but that's
Might be.
really what is a thing.
Absolutely.
Like, I,
Yeah.
a couple years ago left a really horrible relationship, and for 3 years I have been writing every morning in my stream of conscious journaling about well, not horrible, but there were horrible things about it that I shouldn't have stuck around for, and I was writing about it every morning, how it was making me feel, and then I would just close it and go on with my day as if everything was great. And it wasn't, and like when I went back to read things, I was like, wow, I wasn't paying attention to my inner voice. Like, I think it's fascinating to read like stream of conscious, the journaling, and when you're writing your thoughts down, because your subconscious talks to you in so many different ways, and we don't pay attention all the time. It can be both positive and negative.
That is true. That is true.
But I'm big into the journaling.
No, it's good to keep track of things, and then you also see patterns.
Exactly, yeah. Or I'm like, oh, I've kept myself stuck here, or I'm not changing my way of thinking there. I've been complaining about the same thing for a while. It's pretty cool.
I like to I like to think about, is there something I can do about it now, or is this just what it is for right now? And worry about it when it happens, as opposed to
I like that.
worrying before there's anything that can be done.
I like that.
I
do something similar with the airplane. When I'm on the planes, I'm like, well, there's literally nothing I can do right now. I am not flying this plane. It makes no help for anyone if I'm just sitting here worrying. That's like my inner monologue the whole flights. But it helps. It does help.
Oh man.
And and I don't mean this in a funny way, but your statistical odds.
I did meet someone that I'd been
Twice?
into, and that kind of killed. That was always like my thing, and then I met someone that I'd been into, and I was like, you just killed that for
Well,
me.
but that's the person that, now they're
Right?
the statistical odd.
Helps
that,
me out, right?
Yeah, it actually does.
You're fine.
No, it actually does. It's good.
Now you just got to get struck by lightning and win the lottery. You're the luckiest person on the planet,
right?
Were you on a small plane or
No,
what
it was
was
a Southwest plane heading to LaGuardia from here, and it was a pilot error.
What happened?
She came in too fast, and you're supposed to land backwards to front, and
Sure.
she landed front and crushed the landing gear into the plane, and so we hit really hard and then kind of bounced up and then slid 2,000 feet on the nose, and the engines, caught on fire. And if we'd been one more foot to the left, we would have cartwheeled and exploded, so we were incredibly lucky. But that experience changed
When
my
was
life in
this?
so many ways. 2013.
Wow.
Changed the way I think and see and live. It was
I can only
everything.
imagine.
Yeah, I was 18, and it was like it was a very I learned so much about myself. But I mean, it's beautiful. I would never change that experience for anything. Never want it to happen again. Would never trade it though.
It must have happened so quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was that feeling that something wasn't all that right, like when they were coming in, but yeah,
What can
it
you
was
do?
fast. Yeah, I can't do anything. But yeah, it was wild. They were very unprepared. The flight attendants were crying. They didn't know what to do. The pilots just left because at that point it was a federal investigation because it was pilot error.
Wow.
They just left. They left us on there filling with smoke. The passengers were the ones that were going to the bathroom getting the cloths for everyone to put on their nose and mouth because everyone was starting to pass out from all the smoke, and then they told us to stay seated because the flight attendants were just in shock. And
No.
And then the passengers eventually, we were like, screw this, and we put the slide down and left. They didn't want us to take our phones, bags. They didn't want anyone taking pictures of anything, and a lot of people listened and then didn't have money, phones, medicine. I took everything. I was
Sure,
like, what do you
I would too.
Screw you. Then they stuck us in buses, the one lane over, to look at our crashed plane for an hour and a half.
That's traumatizing.
No water, no bathrooms, no nothing, no Advil. The whiplash from a plane crash
Sure,
is
of course.
a car crash times
Yeah.
10. I had nerve pain down my arms for weeks. And then they put us in conference rooms for 6 hours to just wait there, and our phones were dying at rapid paces. So
Sure.
I don't know. It was luckily, my family was actually visiting me in New York, for some reason. And
I remember
they
this.
picked me up,
I remember this.
Yeah, it was not nearly as
Jesus.
public in the news as
Yeah, no, it was in the news,
They
but I remember it. They
suppressed
kept
it
it
a
down.
lot.
Did you get a settlement or anything?
No,
Nothing.
nothing. They paid for my acupuncture and my, someone stole my jacket off the plane, so they gave me some money for that. Not what it was worth, but
Oh my God.
yeah, it was wild. But it, was the genesis of my art project,
Right.
and a lot. My name means resurrection, and so I think I was destined to be in many personal deaths and resurrections, and to become kind of the expert in digging yourself out of trauma and turning it into
Wow.
gold. So.
Wow. Did anyone die on the?
No.
No, good.
We were very lucky. The lady next to me, it was her very first flight she had ever been on, and probably her last. I remember when we hit.
Oh my god!
Just like trying to get out, and I was just like, oh my gosh. My second and third flights though were probably more traumatic in some ways than the crash though, because the week after I was like, I need to fly before this becomes a phobia, and I'm gonna fly alone. No one should have let me do that.
That's brave.
No one should have let me do that. Well, at that point, I was 2 weeks in Nashville and 2 weeks in New York every month, so I was flying a ton. And I was like, I can't be scared of flying. Like, what am I going to do if that happens? And so I got on the plane by myself. I, like, arranged it to where I was going to be, like, an aisle seat. I was going to be able to get out. Like, I didn't know how I was going to be. And I arrived, and they put me on a window seat, and I started arguing with flight attendant. I was like, I need this to go well. Like, I will pay someone to switch with me. Like, there is no way this whole plane no one will switch with me.
Yeah.
And I got someone to switch, and the flight attendants were jerks. But it was apparently the most turbulent day of the year so far, and we were dropping like thousands of feet, and I was running up and down the aisles like I didn't know what to do with myself, and so I was like trapped for like 3 hours. And so then the next 2 weeks later, when I had to fly again, I got some Ativan from my local doctor, but in New York. But he was like, I don't know what to dose you, so test it. Like not flying, and then see. I tested it, didn't feel anything. I doubled it, and I literally like my last memory is getting to the airport, and then like the rest of the time is like black spots. Like I totally like blacked out. I was functional, I guess, but that story is crazy. I got on a flight, like I actually like went out partying. I was buying people drinks. No memory of any of this. Like I just have like spots of what I did, but it was crazy. But it was like 3 consecutive flights of like, oh my gosh. But I flew with Xanax for a while, but it didn't really help me feel better. It just made me sleepy and upset. So I was laying on someone's lap crying for hours. But I found my things that help, help me be fine on the plane. I've yet to do an overseas flight. Like my max so far has been like 5 hours.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to be on it. Like I've been to Africa and China and like the 20-hour long things. And I don't know how I don't know. I'm probably going to have to knock myself out. I don't know that I'll be able to.
You might just want to knock yourself out because it's a long flight and there's boredom. Yeah, I mean, that in itself is already a brutal thing. We just canceled an overseas appearance because we don't want to fly economy for that long. It's as simple as that.
Brutal.
No, it ain't happening.
All right, my last question. Last one.
Sure.
I end all my interviews with this one. If someone gave you a box of everything you've ever lost, what would you look for first?
A ring that was my grandmother's engagement ring.
My innocence.
I knew you'd have an answer like that. Thank you.
I don't know. What would it be? The ring? For you?
Yeah.
Something I lost?
It doesn't have to be tangible.
My hair.
My hair. You're absolutely right.
Where is it?
Yeah, I want my hair back. My hair's falling out. Maybe.
Sorry.
Maybe not that. I don't know.
See, this is why I can't make jokes. I always say something that's like...
No, that's funny.
That's great.
That I lost?
Mm-hmm.
You can't ask difficult questions like this.
But I sold it. Can I have?
Yeah, sure. If something you wish you had back, we can alter it slightly for you.
My original X-Men #1.
What about your stack of wrestling autographs that you left in the
Oh,
drawer?
that's a good one too.
He was like moving or something, and he brought a set of drawers out to go just for someone to pick up and reuse. And he forgot that one of the drawers was filled with wrestling autographs.
Yeah, like old wrestling autographs that were from like dead wrestlers and stuff.
Yeah.
Gone.
Right, that's a good one.
That would be a good one to have back.
Right.
Yeah.
I lost my grandmother's ring. My mom gave it to me. It was a citrine, which is my birthstone. And it was just the most beautiful ring. And it was from the 40s. Mm-hmm. And engagement rings at that point, they were diamond. That was the common choice, but this was a citrine, and it was just beautiful, special to me, and special to my family. And I think I think my weight fluctuates. Like your fingers, like they swell up sometimes. I think I just and it slipped off somewhere. I think it went in the trash.
Oh, that's always the rings. I'm always very when I wear like the really nice ones,
Yeah.
I'm like always trying to be conscious of them or hold my thumb, like,
Yeah.
you know, because when it gets cold or something.
Oh, sure, absolutely. They
Mm.
fall off.
Yeah.
And they're gone.
I had one the other day that I realized fell off, and it was in my purse. When I reached in
Oh,
to get my
thank
wallet or
goodness.
something, it fell off. But I was
Sure.
like, oh no, where's my ring? And I like went digging, and I was like, oh,
There it is, yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us, and thank you guys so much for being here with me. I
Thanks
so
for having us.
appreciate it.
Oh, we had the best time.